Abhina ke doyalo jagat sangsare. Patita pavana hetu tavavatara. Patita pavana hetu tavavatara. Samapatita Prabhu Napai Biha. Samapatita Prabhu Napai Biha. Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi. Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi. Advaita Gosai. Doya Koro Sita Pati Advaita Gosai. Tava kripa bole pai Chaitanya Nitai. Tava kripa bole pai Chaitanya Nitai. Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha. Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha. Mata Juga Sri Daya Koro Sri Acharya Prabhu Srinivas Daya Koro Sri Acharya Prabhu Srinivas Ramachandra Sangamage Narottamadas Ramachandra Sangamage Narottamadas Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Koro More Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Koro More Ke Dayalu Jagat Sansare Toma Pina Ke Dayalu Jagat Sansare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More Toma Bina Ke Dayala Jagat Sangsare Jayam Vishnupad Paramangsa Paravrajagacharya Statara Sadasri Shimaras Divine Grace Abai Chadnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Nitai Gaura Pramanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda From Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, Chapter 8, Text 194. And before I read it, I have this feeling it's a little bit different from the other verses, so I'm going to ask Shachimata, is this Bengali? This is Bengali, because the words, some of the words are unusual, like sohi, it's not so commonly used. Okay, thank you. So the writing's small, so I hope you have 20/20 vision, and if you don't, well, you always have your phone. We do have internet connection, if you know the password. Pahile hiraga nayana bangi bela. Pahile hiraga nayana bangi bela. Anudina badala avadina gela. Anudina badala avadina gela. Naso ramana nahama ramani. Naso ramana nahama ramanihi. Dunghu mana manobhava peshala jani. Dunhu mana manobhava peshala jani. Esake sabha prema kahine. Esake sabha prema kahine. Kanutami kahobi vichurala jani. Kanutami kahobi vichurala jani. Na konjalunduti na konjalunan. Na konjalunduti na konjalunan. Dunhukeri milani majata panchabana. Dunhukeri milani majata panchabana. Apsohi viraga tunhum beli duti. Apsohi viraga tunhum beli duti. Supuruka premaki aichanariti. Supuruka premaki aichanariti. Pahile hiraga nayana bangi bela. Anudina badala avadina gela. Nasoramana nahamaramani. Dunhumana manobhava peshala jani. E sakhe sabha prema kahini. Kanutami kohobi vachurala jani. Na konjalun duti na konjalun an. Dunhukeri milani majata panchabana. Apsohi viraga tuhun beli duti. Supuruka premaki achanariti. Pahile heraga nayana bangi pela. Andundita patela avadina keli. Amana naharamani. Dumana manobhava peshala jani. Esaba prema kahine. Kanutame kahabe vichurala jani. Na konjalun duti, na konjalun ahan. Dunkeri milane majata panchabana. Apsohi viraga tuhun beli duti. Supuruka premaki achanariti. Pahile haraga nayana bangi pela. Anudina batala vadina gela. Nasoramana nahamaramani. Dumana manobhava peshala jani. Veshake sabha prema kahine. Tahulund hitabohi vichurala jani. Nakonjalun duti, nakonjalun nahan. Dunkeri milane majata panchabhanam. Apsohi viraga tuhum beli duti. Supuruka premaki aichana rite. Ladies? Pohile haraga nayana bongi phela. Ono dina bodala avadina gela. Naso ramana nahama ramani. Dunhumana manobhava peshala jani. E sakhi sabha prema kahini. Kano tame kohibe vichurala jani. Na konjalun duti na konjalunahan. Duhunkeri milane majata panchabhana. Apsohi viraga tuhum beli duti. Supuruka premaki achana riti. Okay, word for word. Pahilehi. In the beginning. Raga, attraction. Naina bhangi, by activities of the eyes. Bela, there was. Anudina, gradually day after day. Badhala, increased. Avadhi, limit. Na, not. Gela, reached. Na, not. So, he. Ramana, the enjoyer. Na, not. Hama, I. Ramani, the enjoyed. Dunhumana, both the minds. Manahabhava, the mental situation. Peshala, pressed together. Jani, knowing. A, this. Saki, my dear friend. E Shaba, all those. Prema Kahini, affairs of love. Kanu Tami, before Krishna. Kohibe, you will say. Vichurala, he has forgotten. Jani, knowing. Na, not. Konjalun, searched out. Duti, a messenger. Na, not. Konjalun, searched out. An, anyone else. Dunhukeri, of both of us. Milani, by the meeting. Majja, in the middle. Ta, indeed. Panchabhana, 5 arrows of Cupid. Ab, now. Sohi, that. Viraga, separation. Tunhu, you. Bheli, became. Duti, the messenger. Supuruka, of a beautiful person. Premaki, of loving affairs. Aichana, such. Riti, the consequence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. It's almost like a purport, this translation is so long. Alas, before we met, there was an initial attachment between us, brought about by an exchange of glances. In this way, attachment evolved. That attachment has gradually grown, and there is no limit to it. Now that attachment has become a natural sequence between ourselves. It is not that it is due to Krishna, the enjoyer, nor is it due to me, for I am the enjoyed. It is not like that. This attachment was made possible by mutual meeting. This mutual exchange of attraction is known as Manobhav or Cupid. Krishna's mind and my mind have merged together. Now, during this time of separation, it is very difficult to explain these loving affairs. My dear friend, though Krishna might have forgotten all these things, you can understand and bring this message to him. But during our first meeting, there was no messenger between us, nor did I request anyone to see him. Indeed, Cupid's 5 arrows were our via media. Now, during this separation, that attraction has increased to another ecstatic state. My dear friend, please act as a messenger on my behalf, because if one is in love with a beautiful person, this is the consequence. Please repeat. Alas, before we met, there was an initial attachment between us, brought about by an exchange of glances. In this way, attachment evolved. That attachment has gradually grown, and there is no limit to it. Now that attachment has become a natural sequence between ourselves. It is not that it is due to Krishna, the enjoyer, nor is it due to me, for I am the enjoyed. It is not like that. This attachment was made possible by mutual meeting. This mutual exchange of attraction is known as Manobhav or Cupid. Krishna's mind and my mind have merged together. Now, during this time of separation, it is very difficult to explain these loving affairs. My dear friend, though Krishna might have forgotten all these things, you can understand and bring this message to him. But during our first meeting, there was no messenger between us, nor did I request anyone to see him. Indeed, Cupid's 5 arrows were our via media. Now during this separation, that attraction has increased to another ecstatic state. My dear friend, please act as a messenger on my behalf. Because if one is in love with a beautiful person, this is the consequence. Purport. These verses were originally composed and sung by Ramananda Roy himself. Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur suggests that during the time of conjugal enjoyment, the attachment might be compared to Cupid himself. However, during the period of separation, Cupid becomes a messenger of highly elevated love. This is called Prema Vilas Vivarta. When there is separation, conjugal enjoyment itself acts like a messenger, and that messenger was addressed by Srimati Radharani as a friend. The essence of this transaction is that transcendental loving affairs are as relishable during separation as during conjugal enjoyment. When Srimati Radharani was fully absorbed in love of Krishna, she mistook a black tamal tree for Krishna and embraced it. Such a mistake is called Prema Vilas Vivarta. Alas, before we met, there was an initial attachment between us, brought about by an exchange of glances. In this way, attachment evolved. That attachment has gradually grown, and there is no limit to it, now that attachment has become a natural sequence between ourselves. It is not that it is due to Krishna, the enjoyer, nor is it due to me, for I am the enjoyed. It is not like that. This attachment was made possible by mutual meeting. This mutual exchange of attraction is known as Manobhav, or Cupid. Krishna's mind and my mind have merged together. Now, during this time of separation, it is very difficult to explain these loving affairs. My dear friend, though Krishna might have forgotten all these things, you can understand and bring this message to him. But during our first meeting, there was no messenger between us, nor did I request anyone to see him. Indeed, Cupid's 5 arrows were our via media. Now, during this separation, that attraction has increased to another ecstatic state. My dear friend, please act as a messenger on my behalf, because if one is in love with a beautiful person, this is the consequence. Om Jnanatimrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistang Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I request the permission of the devotees to try and say something relevant, something enlivening, something bona fide on this very elevated topic, which is the talks between Ramananda Roy and the Lord. So I'm very happy my friends are here, and Vishwambar Prabhu's come. I'm glad he's come because I've got to ask him a question about Latin. I don't know if he knows the answer. This word peshala is in this Bengali. It means crushed together. And when I read the word, I thought, this reminds me of an Italian dish called pesto, pasta pesto, which comes, the word pesta, according to Italian, it's pestare, is that right? Pestare means to crush, right? So I'm wondering, because you like to connect Italian to Latin, is there a Latin equivalent to pesta, peshala? I don't know. What is the word for mortar in Bengali, Sachimata? Is it pesta? Pista? There's a word for grinding mortar in Bengali. Does it begin with P? Prabhupada had a phrase. He had a phrase. You take the stick for grinding, and you smash the person's teeth with their own arguments. And he had a Bengali phrase. Do you remember the phrase? Is it got the? What is it? Okay, doesn't matter. If you remember it, just let me know. So I want to know what the word mortar is in Bengali, whether it's similar to pesto or pesta. Anyway, this is a very Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai. So, thank you. That's probably what the word. Okay, the stick. Well, the stick's used for crushing, so maybe that's in Bengali. English, peshala. Thank you for teaching me English. I thought I knew English. I don't. I'm obviously not very cultured. Anyway, so the progression of this conversation, we've gone through, remember that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, what is the ultimate goal of life? Sajyarasar. And Ramananda Roy has gone through from the Varnashram through to Sarvadharma Pritchita, through to hearing from Krishna, Gyane Prayasamudapasya Namanta Eva, Jivanti Sanmukaritam Bhavadiyavartam, to hear from the pure devotee. And that's when Mahaprabhu said, yes, but he has say more, say more. He's gone through all the various rasas. And then we're at the conjugal rasa, and he's explained so many elevated topics from the 10th canto. And Mahaprabhu, he's saying, you've told me everything, but say more, say more. And we reached the point where Ramananda Roy said, there is something more. It's called Prema Vilas Vivarta, and I don't know if you'll like it. and he begins to speak. And Mahaprabhu, he puts his hand over the mouth of Ramananda Roy to say, don't say anymore, this is so high, please don't speak. But then Ramananda Roy speaks this verse. So we're at the pinnacle of the conversation between the Lord and Ramananda Roy. And this is it's a very deep topic. I read the translation, and I reread it, and I couldn't make sense of it. And then over a few days, I started to piece bits together. So I'll share with you what I've pieced together from this wonderful translation and verse. So where does love begin? There's a phrase in the first line, Naina Bhangi, means glancing. So you had this experience. Love begins with glances. Someone looks, and then the other person returns the look. Oh, they were looking, and then they both feel happy. She's thinking, oh, he looked at me. And he's thinking, oh, she looked at me. And then there's embarrassment, look away. Did I get caught? Did I get caught looking at her? And then after a while, it's like, I want her to see me look at her. I want to get caught. I want to send the message to her that I'm looking at her because I like her. And she's thinking, I'm really happy he's looking at me. But in the material world, you can't do that forever. It has to graduate to smiling and talking, and then talking about personal things, and then intimacy alone, etc. And once you've gone through that progression, you can't go back to the glancing. It doesn't work anymore. Married couples, they don't sit in their houses and glance at each other. It doesn't happen. But actually, in the spiritual world, it's different, because it's said here, Avadi Nagela, there is no limit. So you can have all phases at once. So how does love work? There's a nice phrase here. And Prabhupada gives a translation, and then I'll share another angle given by Govinda Maharaj, because he discusses this verse. So if you look at the second couplet, Na so Ramana, na hama Ramani, means he is not the lover, and I am not the, what's the phrase? He is not the lover. Well, this is not due to Krishna, the enjoyer. He's not the enjoyer, and I'm not the enjoyed. Ramani's, Radharani referring to herself. She's Ramani, she's the enjoyed, and Krishna's Ramana. But she's saying he's not the enjoyer, and I'm not the enjoyed. And the idea given in the translation is that love has its own force. It's like, you can give the example, say you're on a roller coaster, and you're sitting next to someone. You're both going through something. So love's a bit like a roller coaster. Now, I remember when I was a brahmachari, at one point I decided, I'm going to get married. I thought, I'll probably do it. When I first was a brahmachari, I thought, 80% chance I'm not going to get married. And after 1 year, I thought 50%. After about 3 years, I started to ask about it. So the temple president of Sydney at the time said to me, marriage is a roller coaster. Once you get on, you can't get off. He was warning me. Now, it can be a good roller coaster or a bad one, but the love part, the initial attraction, it's a fun roller coaster. But there's a force. See, there's the two people, and there's this third force. It's love. Actually, there's four. There's the love. There's two loves. His love for her and her love for him. And that's the force that is driving the whole interaction. So what I get from this translation is Radharani's saying, he's not doing it, I'm not doing it, but there's this powerful love that we're both sharing, and it's driving us here and there and everywhere, and it's the cause of the whole thing. And she goes on to explain further that in separation, that love is now the messenger. And what is that word? Panchabana. What does that mean? 5 arrows. So we have Cupid. It's interesting how we have this beautiful Vedic culture, all these demigods, but they don't seem to enter into English, but somehow Cupid has made it. Everyone in England knows about Cupid with the arrow, and they do little films. Before even Prabhupada came, they had these little films. You see the little Cupid with the arrow. For some reason, this demigod, Kamadev, and of course Krishna is the transcendental Cupid, has made it into the whole English way of thinking. So any historians can maybe check, when did this Cupid with the arrows enter into our culture, as in our Malecha culture? Sorry to say it. Anyway. Thank you. So we already have it. So there's Shakespeare, and how old is Shakespeare? 500 years maybe? 600. So Shakespeare, which was before Mahaprabhu, and we had Cupid already being talked about with arrows. Thank you. Are you an English teacher? Yes. Thank you. How did I know? Only English teachers know Shakespeare back to front. Prabhuji. Okay. That might explain it, because Greek culture, we obviously know more about it than Sanskrit. Okay. Aphrodite, yes. From which we get the word aphrodisiac. So, I was explaining. So love is the force. But let's look at it from another angle. And I refer to Embankment of Separation, which is a book. It was actually edited by Madhavananda Prabhu, but it's based on the teachings of Gaur Govinda Maharaj. So he really churns the nectar here. So he explains that there's different levels of love. Now in the Adi Lila, it said, Hladinira Sara Prem, Prema Sara Bhav, Bhavara Paramakashta, Hoi Mahabhav. The essence of Hladini is Prema. So that's the pleasure potency, Hladini Shakti. The essence of Hladini is Prema. The essence of Prema is Bhav. So there's degrees of Prema, and the highest degree is Bhav. And when Bhav reaches its highest platform, it's known as Mahabhav. So sometimes there's a verse that says, Mahabhav Sarupa Sri Radha Thakurani. Sri Radharani is the embodiment of this Mahabhav. So sometimes people say, Prabhupada didn't give us everything. But in Chaitanya Charitamrita, not only did he give us Prema, but he's given us the degrees of Prema. And actually, in the conversations between Mahaprabhu and Sanatana Goswami, even the degrees of Mahabhav are described. And that is repeated in Jaiva Dharma by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and also by Gaur Govinda Maharaj. He likes to go into the essence of the essence of the essence. So it said, Prema Vriddhi Kraminam Sneha Mana Pranaya Raga Anuraga Bhav Mahabhav Ahoya. The degrees of Prema are, well, actually the first degree is known as Rati, preliminary love of God, which is also sometimes called Bhav. The second degree is Prema. And then Sneha, affection, Mana, which means counter love or sulkiness. It's nice to indulge in some sulky behavior with your beloved, right? You get to have a sulk, and because you get to express, you didn't do that to me. And you're looking for attention, and it's a nice aspect of love. But after Mana, there's Pranaya, which means, and this is where it gets technical, Pranaya means when the lover and the beloved become one. There's a type of love where you're so deeply attached that you feel like you are one person. That's called Pranaya. And in Ujjvala Nilamani, which I've not read, but Gaur Govinda Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada discuss these things, there's a phrase called Vishramba. Now this word Vishramba, I first saw it in connection with Sakyaras. Vishramba means intimate friendship. Vishramba Sakya means very intimate friendship, as opposed to Gaurava Sakya, which means there's friendship, but there's also some reverence there. So Vishramba means intimacy to the point of becoming one. I mentioned the last time I gave class that the cowherd boys can kick Krishna, but the monkeys can't kick Lord Ramachandra. Different mood. There's a more elevated type of love between the cowherd boys and Krishna, that they feel like they are one body and they can just play and kick and wrestle, and there's no disrespect. So that Vishramba is there in Sakya Ras, but it's also there in conjugal Ras, right, in Madhurya Ras. So what's actually been said here is Radha and Krishna are being crushed together, Peshala. And how are they crushed? It's the force of circumstances. They're being crushed together through pain of separation. And their love becomes elevated. Therefore, Prema, Sneha, Mana, Pranaya, and everything after Pranaya, the lover and the beloved are one. Raga, more ecstatic, Anurag, then Bhav, and then Mahabhav. These are all degrees. And so, Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he poses the question, and we go back to the fifth verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita, because now we've reached such a high topic, but that topic is actually already discussed in verses 5 and 6 of Adi Lila. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vrikritir, Ladini Shakti Rasma, De Katmanava Pi Bhavi Bhava, De Habenam Gatau Tau, Chaitanyakam Pragatam Aduna Tadvayam Chaikyamaptam, Radha Bhava Juti Suvalitam Naomi Krishna Sarupam. So the absolute truth is one, Eka Atma, Ekatmanav. Now this verse is, because it's talking about two, there's lots of au. Words that end in au means dual, the dual ending. Ekatmanau means one soul. I once asked a Sanskrit pundit, I said, why do we see Radha Govinda? Because there's two of them. Why don't we see Radha Govindau? Because sometimes people say Guru Gurangao. Why do we see one and not two? And his answer was very simple. He said, well, they're one and different, therefore they're one. So you can see Radha Govinda. So we say Shri Shri Radha Govinda, we're saying they're one. We say Shri Shri Radha Govindau, we're saying they're two. They're both the one and they're two. For example, if you heard this phrase, Shakti, Shakti Matayor Abeda. You heard this phrase? It means there's no difference between Shakti, which is Radharani, and Shaktiman, which is Krishna. Shakti Matayor, there's another version, Shakti, Shakti Mator Abeda, which is the same phrase but singular. So Shakti, Shakti Matayor means dual, and Shakti Mator means singular. So the same phrase is both, just how you want to use it. So the point is they're one and different. And as Govinda Maharaj says, in tattva they are different, but in mood they are one. So let's go back to the verse. Ekatmanavapi, although they are one, they become two. And the two now become one again. Why? In order to taste rasa. Radha Bhava Juti Suvalitam Naomi Krishna Sarupam. But that is Krishna. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. The tattva's there. But he has the duty, the mood, the duty, the luster, and the bhav, the mood of Srimati Radharani. So Govinda Maharaj, he says, why pranaya? Why not prema vrikriti? You could say Radha prema vrikriti. Radharani is the transformation of Krishna's prema. And he explains it's because of this. Pranaya means because they are one. It's not referring not just to prema, but the very intense prema when the lover and the beloved become one. And therefore, although they are different, at the same time they are one. And the sixth verse is the same. Sri Radhaya pranaya mahima kidrisha vanayaiva svajoyena bhuta madurima kidrisha veti lo kidrisho vamadiyaha saukyam chasyam adano bhavataha kidrisham veti lo bhat was it Bhavaja samajani sachigarba sindau harinduhu, that the Lord Chaitanya has arisen just like the moon arises from the ocean. Now, if you're in Bengal, actually, is it Sachigarba Sindhu Harindu? Anyway, is it the moon or the sun rising? Anyway, when you're in Bengal in the morning, if you're at the bank of the Ganges, you can see the sunrise. It's very beautiful. So actually, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are considered to be like the sun and the moon rising. Anyway, same phrases used. The greatness of Radharani's love, the sweetness that she tastes through that love, and the realization she gets from reflecting on that sweetness. These are the three desires that Krishna has, which is why he comes as Lord Chaitanya, to fulfill those desires. And the word used is lobha. Lobha means greed. So Krishna has his greed. This part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita is all about Raganuga Bhakti. How do we know? Because previously in this chapter it says, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavatamati Kriyatam Yadi Kato Pilapyati Tatra Lauyam Apimulyam Ekalam Janma Kodi Sukritana Labhyati. To get this taste, Raganuga Bhakti, to get this Krishna Bhakti, there's only one price, and that's Lauyam. You have to be greedy. So greed, when we talk about greed, we're talking about that aspect of devotional service which can be attained through greed and not just through mechanical sadhana. Through mechanical sadhana, you can't attain Raganuga Bhakti. What is this Raganuga Bhakti? It's explained by Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami. So there's a verse that describes Ragatmika. It's Ishti Svarasiki Raga Paramavishtata Bhavet Tanmayi Bhavaya Bhakti Satra Ragatmikodita. Ragatmika means when you have a natural, inherent desire, ishti, to the form of Krishna that you want to worship, and paramavishtata, it just absorbs you, complete absorption. If you're attached to something, attracted to something, naturally you'll be very absorbed. So the attraction comes, that leads to a complete absorption. And someone who is in that state of consciousness, they are known as a ragatmika bhakta. They are very high elevated. And if you have the association of them, satam prasangam mamavirya samvado bhavanti ritkarna rasayana kata, you will relish what they speak. You will relish their words because their bhakti is infectious. So sadhu sangha is a type of infection. And we want to spread this infection throughout the world because that will ultimately transform the world and everyone will become Krishna conscious. If we don't have this raga, then it's very hard to preach. And recently, Antaranga Prabhu, I was just talking with him about book distribution, and he said, if someone comes to him and talks about the Quran or the Bible, he'll say, well, look, if you say the Quran, I can say the Bhagavad Gita, so it's equal. So you can't just talk about the Quran, I can talk about the Gita. So you can't use your arguments against me because I can use them against you. So how do you go beyond that? You have to find some commonality. I remember speaking with Keshava Maharaj, and he said, it's good to find what's common with a person, then you become friends. Once you're friends, you can easily preach. I know from personal experience. One time, a Jehovah's Witness came round to my door. And so I opened the door, and he offered me, and I said, thank you. And then I said to him, will you take one of my things? I had an on-chanting leaflet. And he didn't want to take. And I thought to myself, I don't want to take your book now, because you didn't want to take mine, I don't want to take yours. But a year later, the same thing happened. This time it was a woman, lady, Jehovah's Witness, and she had a child. And the same thing happened. She gave me the Watchtower, and I said, will you take this? And she said, yes, and she took it. And I felt very happy, and I liked her. And I closed the door, I went upstairs, and I looked out the window, and she's walking along the street, and her daughter is looking through on chanting, looking at all the pictures of Krishna. And I was thinking, that's very nice. It was a nice exchange. I took the gift, she took the gift. It was reciprocal. So we learn from that, which is why, personally speaking, when I'm on Harinam Sankirtan, if I see a Christian or a Muslim trying to give me a card, I take the card and I say, thank you very much. Because I know that person will be happy, because they'll be thinking, maybe that Hare Krishna is going to come to the higher platform. He's going to not worship idols anymore, and he's going to realize there's only one God, not many, and that's going to be a very good thing. So they'll be happy, and they'll have a positive experience, and I feel happy because I know that they have a positive experience about the Hare Krishnas, you see. So anyway, why did I get on about that? Yeah, I was talking about, say again? Yes, love and exchanges, okay. So anyway, in summary, Nasa Ramana, Nahama Ramani, it has one meaning, that love is the force, and the other meaning is the type of love is the type of love, pranaya vikritir, where the lover and the beloved are pressed together, crushed together, and that's bringing their love higher. Now we all know this, in this material world, we know that pain and suffering can increase love. Now I'll give you an example. Fighter pilots. If you're in a squadron and you've fought, and this happened in the Second World War, there were so many American fighter pilots, and they were looking out for each other. They had the wingman, they were protecting each other, one was saving the other's life. These people, what happens when they come back? Peacetime is over. Every year they meet. Year after year they'll meet, because they've formed a bond, and it's a bond that no one can understand. If you've been in war and you've been with someone and you've fought with them on the same side, it creates a bond that you can never describe unless you've been in that situation. So for war veterans, they like to meet every year, and it's a lifelong friendship. And what is that? That's bonding through pressure. Now, if you can imagine love, Romeo and Juliet, we have the lovely example. There's obstacle. Any romance is not a good story unless there's obstacles. So Romeo and Juliet, the families are feudal. They're like barbarians. They haven't followed the principle, sarvo padi vinir muktam. There's no false designation. They don't think that way. They just think, I'm part of this. I don't even remember the names. We have our Shakespeare teacher. She's gone. No, we don't have the names of the families. But Romeo and Juliet, they came from feudal families, and they were like, that's the boundary. This is a real designation. We don't see ourselves as spirit souls loving everyone. And of course, as a result, the love, it's actually quite spiritual. There's a spiritual dimension to this Romeo and Juliet. The love is universal between Romeo and Juliet, and it transcends the family feud. And at the end of the play, if I remember correctly, the families make up. And they say, okay, look, we lost our Romeo, we lost our Juliet. And it was all because of, we had this stupid feud, and they become friends. Right? But anyway, it's kind of spiritual, the idea of love transcends all. And you notice it in the Hare Krishna movement as well. People talk about, well, there's the Westerners, and then there's the Indians. But it doesn't stop them marrying each other. We talk about them being different, but it's like so many Hindu people are marrying Western people and vice versa, because ultimately love is universal. It transcends all these boundaries. I remember once going to Mayapur and back to Vijayapura where Maj was there, and he said, well, where have you been? Because he hadn't seen me for a while. And I said, I've been in the United Kingdom. And he chuckled and go, is it united? He's making the point, this material world is no unity. And afterwards I thought, it's pretty united because they marry each other, Scottish men marry English women, etc. So, because, male-female stuff, it transcends the other boundaries. Anyway, so let's discuss, I began discussing the elevation of love, and I got to the point where I was talking about pranaya, pranaya being the lover and the beloved are one, pranaya, raga, anurag, bhav, and mahabhav. But we can even talk about mahabhav. What are the divisions of mahabhav? This is like just the highest ecstasy of prema. There's what's known as rudha mahabhav, very elevated mahabhav. And then there's atiruddha mahabhav, even more elevated. And then the queens of Dwarka, they don't go beyond that. And then there's modana mahabhav. Modana means some divine pleasure, indescribable. And then if you add even more separation, modana becomes mohana. And then from mohana we get madana. What's the difference between mohana and madana? Well, speaking from personal realization, Prabhu, I will share what I have understood. No, I'm joking. According to, if you look at the Govardhana Maharaj books, they got a little glossary. They describe Madanakya Bhava as simultaneous separation and oneness. You have, I was mentioning in this, you can't have both. You can have the glancing, and you want to speak to the person, but once you've already spoken to them, you can't go backwards. But in the spiritual world, it's different. So in this Madanakya Mahabhav, you can have the benefits of separation and the benefits of union simultaneously. That's Madanakya Mahabhav, union and separation simultaneously. So all the elements of separation are there, even though there's union at the same time. Mohana means you take modana, which I think has elements of union, and then you put more separation into it and it becomes mohana. So I don't know how you go from mohana to madana. You're going to have to ask someone who knows. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about this for too long because I might get into trouble being a sahaja. Anyway, but I'll say a little bit more. And this is from Gaur Govinda Maharaj as well, which is a very wonderful analysis. So he compares Radharani's heart to wax. So let's go back to the verse 5 and 6 of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The reason, or verse 6, the reason why Mahaprabhu comes. He's coming to taste the bhav of Radharani. So he has to get it, but it's in our heart. So how does he get it? He has to steal it. And it's actually said, Kutuki rasastoma hritva. He's the thief, and he steals the mellow within Radharani's heart. But how can he steal? Because Radharani's heart is like wax, and it's hard. He can't enter it. So in order to steal this mellow, he has to melt Radharani's heart. And how does he melt it? With the fire of? Fire of what? Separation, yes. So the fire of separation, Krishna, he's playing games with Radharani. He's playing with her heart, and he becomes invisible. And then she's feeling separation, or he goes off to Mathura. I think this verse is not explained. This verse, we're on the board. I think it's when Radharani's in Mathura. And she's speaking to Cupid. Cupid's the messenger. And she's saying, Krishna won't remember me, but I remember him. So she's feeling that she's been deserted by Krishna. He's with the queens in Mathura. Anyway, the queens in Dwarka. But he's in Mathura, and he's playing with his cowherd boys, and he's doing all sorts of things. He's wrestling with Kamsa. But anyway, she's thinking Krishna's forgotten me. And that's where I think it comes from, this particular angle. So yeah, it's talking about the wax. So but with the fire of separation, then the heart becomes soft, and then Krishna can enter into the heart. And in a few verses' time, Ramananda Rai will faint. So the fainting of Ramananda Rai, and this will conclude this discussion, and I'll go back to something normal. The fainting of Ramananda Rai is very, very elevated, and Govinda Maharaj has brought out the significance. So he explains in terms of 3 types of union and 3 types of separation. So beginning with separation, the 3 types of separation are Bhavi, Varaha, which means the gopis know they're going to be separated from Krishna. Krishna's still there, but they know it's going to happen. Like, Krura is coming. Krura is going to come and take away Krishna. Bhavi, Varaha, they feel separation at the thought that it's going to happen in the future. And there's Bhuta Varaha, means the separation has already happened, and the mood of separation is increased because as time increases, the separation increases. And this is actually, this verse, there's an element of that in this verse, because Radharani is talking about the separation as the love is increasing due to separation. So that means separation has also already happened. But the most intense type of separation is Bhavan Varaha. Bhavan means it has happened, it is happening. It's the separation when Krishna is actually leaving Vrindavan. Now, when Akrura takes away Krishna, that's Bhavan Varaha, that's the most intense moment. And what were the gopis doing? They were throwing themselves under the wheels of the chariot because they couldn't bear to live. That's how intense it was. You see? So that's Bhavan Varaha. So as Govinda Maharaj points out, just as the most intense type of separation is Bhavan. The most intense type of union is Bhavan Milana. Milana means union. So union has 3 types as well, Bhavi, Bhuta, and Bhavan. So Bhavi Milana is like you've not actually met, but the desire's there. Like Rukmini, for example, the messenger, she's sending a messenger to Krishna. She's never met Krishna, but she's feeling separation even though she's never met Krishna. So that's Bhuta Milana, there's union, but it hasn't happened. Or, to give an example, that's not a good example, that's Purvarag. Better example is in Niduvan, Vishaka. Who's Vishaka? Vishaka is Ramananda Roy. This is important. Vishaka, she sees Radha and Krishna coming together for their lila, but they haven't merged in love. So she's already seen that ecstasy. She's seen Radha and Krishna after they've merged. They're embracing and they're one. That's called Bhavi Milana. The union has already happened. She's seen them lying in bed together, embracing as one. That's her ecstasy. But Vishaka has never seen the actual moment when Krishna enters Radharani's heart and they merge. That's called Bhavan Milana. Bhavan Milana means when the union is actually happening. And what's about to happen in Chaitanya Charitamrita is Ramananda Roy is going to see the 2 forms. He's going to see Radha Krishna separate and Radha Krishna as one. And then he says to Mahaprabhu, first I see a sannyasi, then I see a blackish complexion, a boy with blackish complexion, is Krishna. Now I see a golden doll, So he sees Radha, he sees the sannyasi, Mahaprabhu, he sees Radha Krishna with the bluish complexion, but then he sees the merging of Radha and Krishna and this golden complexion. And that's Bhavan Milana, which is the highest type of union. And that's why Ramananda Rai faints, because the idea here is Chaitanya's Leela is the maturation of Krishna's Leela. So that the bhavs are even higher in Chaitanya Leela than they are even in Krishna Leela. So Vishaka, she doesn't see that in Krishna's Leela, but when she has this conversation with Ramananda Rai, she sees the Bhavan Milana, the actual moment when Krishna enters into the melted heart of Radharani and they become one. And that's just the most ecstatic type of union, you see? And that's as far as I'm going on that. And what time shall we finish? Do we finish at 9:15 or do we finish at 9 o'clock? Sometimes on Saturdays the prasad is a little late, so I'll go on a little bit further because we'll probably we'll be too early. I'm going to go down. Let's now talk about our approach to all this. So there's a famous phrase for Bhaktivedanta Saraswati, Puja Laragapata, Gaurava Mangi. It means we keep the spontaneous path, the path of spontaneous love, we keep it above our heads. Gaurava Bhangi means it's a very elevated thing, and we always have that attitude, that Raganuga Bhakti is something very, very high, and we should have awe and reverence for the Guru and awe and reverence for the process, and not try and prematurely jump to that platform. And I find this, Prabhupada had a way of saying this. He had little phrases, and I've said them before, I'll say them again. They're really kind of clever little phrases that Prabhupada had to describe this. He would say, Kurukshetra Lila first, then Rasa Lila. The idea being is, you got to get your ecstasy from Bhagavad Gita. And this is a good test. Because some people, they like to talk about higher topics, but they don't have a taste for Bhagavad Gita. Remember the Brahmana in Srirangam? He was in ecstasy, he couldn't read, but he used to go in ecstasy just picking up the Bhagavad Gita. Because that's the real test. Can you get ecstasy from reading the Bhagavad Gita? And if you don't, then it means you're for material reasons, you're going somewhere else because you can't get spiritual, you're not qualified spiritually. So you go to Rasa Lila because you can't get it from Kurukshetra Lila. So that's one little phrase. Kurukshetra Lila first, then Rasa Lila. Now recently I had a look at the verses that Prabhupada quoted the most often. And what I find interesting is 8 of the top 10 verses are all Bhagavad Gita verses. So Srila Prabhupada was quoting Bhagavad Gita a lot. So let's have a little test here. Who can guess, or who knows the Bhagavad Gita verses, top 10 Bhagavad Gita verses, or the top 8 Bhagavad Gita verses that are in the top 10? Anyone? Just make a guess. Manmana Baba Mad Bhakto. Let me just double check. Yes, that's number 9. Thank you. Got a point for Deepak Prabhu. Which is? Dehino Sminyata Dehi. That's number 7 is Dehino Sminyata Dehi. Sarva Dharman Parichaja. That is number 2. It's the second most quoted verse ever. Number 3 is a Bhagavad Gita verse, and no one's mentioned it yet. No. No. Say again? No. No. Has anyone mentioned Brahma Buddha Prasanatma yet? That's number 6. Daivi Yesha Gunamayi is number 8. Prakriti Kriyamanane is number 10. But number 3, Bahunam Jamanamanti is number 5. But the third most quoted verse no one's got yet. Now I'll give you a hint. How do you go back to the spiritual world? No, that's in the top 20, I think. Yes, Prabhupada quoted this verse so often. He said, if you know the birth and activities of the Lord, then you can go back to the spiritual world. He's asking us, you learn about Krishna, learn Krishna's his activities and about his birth, how he's unborn, but yet he still takes birth. That is the third most quoted verse of Srila Prabhupada. Now in the top 10, there's 2 that weren't Bhagavad Gita verses. Anyone like to guess what they are? It's good. If I get you to guess, you'll never forget. No, that's a Bhagavad Gita verse. This is not a Bhagavad Gita verse. Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's from the Brahma Samhita. There's 2 verses, the top 10 verses, there's 2 of them are not Bhagavad Gita verses. So the 4th most often quoted verse of Prabhupada is from the Brahma Samhita. So which verse is it? Ishvara Parama Krishna. The verse that establishes Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Or Krishna's Tu Bhagavan Swayam, which doesn't appear in the top 10. But what's number 1? No. That is in the top 20, there are only 3 Bhagavatam verses, and that's one of them. So thank you. What's the topmost verse Prabhupada quoted? Shall I tell you? No. Okay, I'm teasing you. It's from the Kali Santarna Upanishad. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yes, I know. I thought I'd do that to you. Anyway. Is 2:13 Dehi no sminyata Dehi? That's number 7, seventh most quoted verse. Okay. Now let's not look at number 11, Janma Jasyataha, from the Vedanta Sutra. But it's also from the Bhagavatam, so it might be that. That could be number 11. But what is the most quoted? That's counted as Brahma Sutra. What is the most quoted verse from Bhagavatam? Anyone want to make a guess on that one? No. It's not, this is number 22, it's not Savai Pumsham Paro Dharmo. That's a very often quoted verse about pure devotional service. It's the phrase from Prahlad Maharaj, Nate vidu svarta gatim hi Vishnum. The demons do not know that the actual purpose of life is to know Vishnu. You see? Anyway, so there you are. This demonstrates that, in the first top 100 verses, about 50 of them are Bhagavad Gita verses. So Prabhupada was always quoting the Bhagavad Gita. That was the main book for distribution, because that's his ecstasy. Kurukshetra first, and then you can have both Kurukshetra Leela and Rasa Leela together. And the other phrases he would use, they are not becoming purified, they're becoming putrefied. If we go prematurely to the high topics, we become putrefied. First deserve, then desire. It's wonderful. And here's one I've first come to Swarup, then talk of Swarup. Because we have this tendency, we talk about the Swarup, and then we say, well, what's the difference between, Vastu Siddhi and Swarup Siddhi, and is it to do with the Swarup develops in the next life in Krishna's Leela, or is it this life? And all this talk. But actually Prabhupada said, first come to Swarup, then talk of Swarup. Anyway, so these are Prabhupada's way of telling us to be very, very careful. And that's why in our movement we don't talk about these things so much. And of course sometimes it comes up in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ramananda Roy Leela. But it's nice that we don't, and never be fooled into thinking, oh, that means we're not so, ISKCON isn't so advanced. It's a very basic practice because we don't talk about these things. Because it's not about talking about them, it's about whether you can actually experience them. And those that experience them, they don't talk about it, generally. Just like if Vishwambar has got a big diamond in his safe in his house, he's not going to tell anyone because it's a secret. So if you have something very, very precious, you're not going to talk about it, right? So the Prabhupada's mood was, if you do come to this higher platform, then you just carry on, just guide everyone else, help spread Lord Chaitanya's mission, but you don't talk about these things. So some people, they foolishly think that because people are not talking about it, it means they don't have it, and then they think by us talking about it, we have it. But that's not the case. Because as Prabhupada said, first you become putrefied if you're not very careful, you see. So we have to always bear that in mind. And it's a balancing act, because tatra lauyam api mulyam ekalam, we need the greed. And Bhaktivedanta Saraswati once said, I'm talking about these elevated topics because if I don't, you'll become impersonalist. So there is a little element where we do talk about it because we need to nourish the greed. But at the same time, we have to distinguish between the real bona fide spiritual greed, which is pure, and the false greed, which is just prematurely entering into higher topics. Service now, samadhi later. Work now, samadhi later. That's a nice one. And if I remember rightly, someone's investigated that and they can't actually find a Prabhupada quote for that. So maybe it is, maybe not. So if anyone would like to research if that has actually been said, because someone questioned that and said it's not a Prabhupadism, but maybe it is. Maybe someone just didn't look hard enough. So anyway, that's what's worth looking at. But thank you. So I've left a few minutes left. I think Prasad normally gets served at 9:05-ish, but I've got 5 minutes, so any comments or questions? Thank you. And if you don't, we'll just join the Prasad queue. Cyrus Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. So elevated, all of this. So you mentioned Mahabhav and different stages.
Yeah.
Is it only the gopis that experience these different stages, the Mahabhav?
Well, to get a proper answer, if you go to the teachings of Sanatana Goswami, you'll find the answer. As far as I remember, there's a type of elevated Mahabhav called Adhirudha Mahabhav, and I think the queens of Dwarka experienced that. But there's a type of bhav, Madana, Modana, or Madana, only Radharani experiences. I think some of those types of bhavs the gopis experience, and then there's the Madana, Akhyabhav, Mahabhav, only Radharani experiences. But there's definitely, Mahabhav is definitely experienced by the queens of Dwarka in one of its degrees. It's also experienced by devotees like Subal, because they are connected so much to the conjugal rasa, because they're messengers, that they experience Mahabhav as well. But yes, there's different degrees of Mahabhav, and of course, the very highest level is Radharani's experiences. Okay?
I had this thought once, maybe a silly thing, but I was thinking, gopis, feminine, the women, right? Women. Why are the only gopis get to enter into Mahabhav and get to experience this? Why this feminine aspect of Krishna, the Shakti aspect, can only experience this bhav? Apparently, because it's been said that
the jiva can experience it too. It's not like, I mean, we're jivas. We're like Tatashta Shakti. We can, if we develop that mood, we can develop it too. But why? Well, I don't know.
No, I just wondered because
I mean, I don't. It's like, for example, if I'm none the wiser. For example, if I'd come to the Hare Krishna movement, and then I was taught that conjugal ras is a relationship with Krishna, that's the lowest, and the highest is Shanta. Now, I would have believed it, because I've not any experience otherwise. So you're asking, why is it that the conjugal ras is higher? Why is it the feminine, the male-female aspects are the highest? I don't know why that is. That's just what it is. All I know is it's a reflection.
yeah. I know it's an unfair question to ask, but
No, but it's a valid question. There might be some answer that someone knows. I don't know. I haven't heard of an answer. Gandhari. Yes, all the other rasas are involved. Yeah, that's one aspect. The conjugal ras contains all the other ones. Attachment to the feet of Krishna is common to all rasas. And then if you add service, a deep service, you get more realization of Krishna through service. That's dasya. And then to get to mamata, intimacy, you're going to get sakya. And then palya, palaka bhav, gyan, the feeling of protecting is in vatsalya. And then nijangi deha means giving of one's own body is conjugal ras. These are the Rupa Goswami. This is described when Rupa Goswami and Mahaprabhu discuss. Thank you.
We wanted to know the grinding.
Yes.
For Bengali. Yeah?
Yeah.
Actually, it is here. Look. Duhuman, Monobhav, Peshana Jani. Actually, this.
Peshala.
They're all classical Bengali.
Yes.
So it's not commonly.
Yes. Peshala is.
Peshala.
Yeah.
Peshala should be Pesha.
Pesha.
Commonly.
Okay. Thank you.
Which is the word.
Thank you. We're back to pesto. So thank you. Anyone else like to make any comments, questions? Prajna Prabhu. Oh. And we'll wrap it up in Hati Prasadam.
It's concerning the positions of you could say lover and beloved. It seems that actually they're. I've just got to try and remember this feeling where one becomes ashraya and the other one becomes vishaya, and their positions change.
Okay.
Yeah, and that occurred to me. Actually, one becomes the shelter of the other, and the other one becomes the object.
Okay. Well, okay, and so in terms of tattva, Krishna's Vishaya and Radharani's Ashraya. But then there's sometimes it's said that Krishna is a dancing puppet in the hands of Radha. Radha Prema is the dance instructor. And Radha's love is a dance instructor, and Krishna's dancing to her tune. He's known as Krida Mriga. He's an animal. He's like a pet in the hands of the Leela of Radharani. So Krishna is controlled by Radharani. So in that sense, he actually ends up begging and taking shelter of Radharani. So there's a mood there. Yeah, it's all.
Okay, thank you.
I won't say more. Grantaraj Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Haribo.